Good morning, and thank you for tuning in to the Andrew Tate Show, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We've got a great show for you guys today. We're going to be covering the South Carolina versus Iowa game that happened yesterday. We'll also be discussing a little bit about LeBron James and Bronny James. We'll also be talking about whether the Kansas City Chiefs could move to Dallas. And since it's Monday, make sure you guys stick around for later in the show when we'll be diving into our dating horror stories of the day. But before we start, I just wanted to ask that you guys like and follow the show. We get a number of questions from viewers that come in during the show, so to ensure that your question gets read on the air, I ask that you use the tips and donation link with your question. That link is GSMCpodcast.net. This just puts your question at the top of the list so that I can see it, and it also just really helps the show. Hello, Tate. How are you doing today?
Hello, Miss Faith. We are kind of sort of color coordinated a little bit here. I got the white on, you got the white on, I got a little extra.
You got a little flair.
Yeah, a little pink to it, even with the little sleeves. Make sure the accent just enough, so because you know you're bringing your A game on a Monday.
Yeah,
you don't have your normal. There's
sometimes
there's looks throughout the week. Listen, you are always spectacular. I'm not throwing shade at you. There's just different levels. There's Monday spectacular. Then there's Friday spectacular. They're different games. So how was your weekend?
It was good. I worked this weekend, but I also, Miss Faith, watched two basketball games this weekend. So
I didn't know you watched two.
I watched half of the Iowa and UConn game, and then yesterday I watched the whole South Carolina and Iowa game. So
nice. You did more than what I did. This weekend, normally I work on Saturdays and Sundays. I left here Friday about 7 o'clock. Didn't come back until it was 10 this morning. I'd say the whole weekend intentionally did not go near the office.
Give Tate a round of applause.
Weekend. That is a big deal for me.
That never happens.
Never happens.
Yeah.
So I just kind of laid low and binge watched a bunch of old television series that I haven't seen in a long time. And then came here this morning and then watched the game. So I did get the game in a little this morning. So let's dive into this game.
Okay, so sadly for me, I was rooting for Iowa, but South Carolina beat Iowa for the national title. The South Carolina Gamecocks completed their undefeated season with an 87-75 victory over the Iowa Hawkeyes in the NCAA Women's National Championship. With their win, the Gamecocks became the first team since at least 2000 to win a title after returning 0 primary starters from the team that reached the Final Four in the previous season. Despite coming off the bench, Tessa Johnson led the Gamecocks in scoring with 19 points. Kamilla Cardoso with a second for South Carolina with 15 points. 3 of Iowa's starters, including Caitlin Clark, tallied 40 minutes in the contest. Caitlin led all scorers with 30 points, 18 of which came in the first half. After losing to the Hawkeyes in last year's Final Four, Dawn Staley's squad completed its revenge tour. South Carolina joined the 1991 Tennessee Lady Volunteers as the only team to win the national title game against the team that eliminated them in the previous women's NCAA tournament. Staley's third title also put her in the company of Gino
Ariana.
Ariana.
UConn's coach, yes.
Pat Summitt, Kim Mulkey, and Tara Van Derveer as the 5th head coach to win a trio of national championships. From Gamecocks alums and Las Vegas Ace stars A'ja Wilson to Los Angeles Lakers star LeBron James and beyond, plenty of praise poured in for the national champs. I was so rooting for Iowa, and watching the first half of the game, I was like, oh, Iowa's got it. Iowa's got it for sure. And then the Gamecocks came in after halftime, and honestly, To me, it looked like a completely different team in the second half because South Carolina's defense really held their own in the second half of the game. So, but I was so upset. I was on the edge of my seat.
When you know what's going on, you're a little vested in it, aren't you?
Yeah.
First, you guys you were talking about how Staley joins General Ariama and Pat Summitt, and I always got to give a shout out to Pat Summitt, old Tennessee's coach. She's passed, but that is my favorite coach in all of basketball, men's, college, pro. It doesn't matter. Pat Summitt is my all-time favorite. So to put Dawn Staley in the same conversation as Pat Summitt is a big deal. So I gotta pay praise homage to my girl Pat Summitt. Okay, this was really the tale of two halves. Yes. Like you were saying how it seemed like two different games. That's where Dawn Staley gets the credit.
Yeah.
This is why I'm happy that when you're reading this article, they talk more about Dawn Staley because there was a different coach. Maybe South Carolina gets blown off the court, but what is called that halftime adjustment, she made halftime adjustments and took advantage. If you notice, the adjustments that was made were on the defensive side of things.
Yes.
They slowed that game down. They made their defense become a factor in the game. And I mean, it became a major factor. It's the winning cause. If you're going to say MVP, South Carolina's defense is the MVP of this game. Also, making the right substitutions. South Carolina kept an incredibly fresh team out there. They kept bringing in a lot of players.
A lot of freshmen.
Just loaded.
I
think they were calling South Carolina like the daycare because there were so many freshmen on the team. Was it something like that they were calling them?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
But they kept bringing in fresh bodies all the time. And you look at it and you say, Caitlin Clark had 30 points, 30 or 31 points. South Carolina's bench had 37. Not their starters, their bench. So their bench wiped out Caitlin Clark's influence. They the bench outscored. So that meant the rest of the team would have had to come up and answer the call. And Iowa's rest of their team just wasn't up to it. I felt like South Carolina's size, they were just too big. Their bench was too deep, and the defensive substitution, the defensive play was like just second to none. It was a great game. Also, the fact that when you get knocked out of the playoffs, when you're thinking you got a shot at the national championship, and the team knocked you out, and you get to play them again in the national championship 1 year later, and get your revenge against the all-world Caitlin Clark, these girls who are playing, or these ladies who are playing, they don't look at it as like Caitlin Clark's so great. They look at it as she's getting all this hype when we should be getting the hype. We're the number one team. We're the undefeated team. So South Carolina played not like the number one team, but a team that had a grudge, had an axe to grind. You haven't paid enough attention to us. Well, take a look at us now. And it was like defense. It was just wave after wave. Caitlin started out with 18, right in the first half.
Yeah, she was killing it in the first half. It was three after three after three. I was like,
and
good Lord.
Only 12 in the second half. That means incredibly slowed her down.
Yes,
big time. And I forget her name. Was it Johnson or someone that was playing defense against her?
Tessa
Tessa
Johnson.
Tessa Johnson, she was bringing that. She was bringing an A game on the defensive side. And then every once in a while, Staley would come in, give her time to get a little rest, and then she's back out there fresh and ready to go. And that's the thing. When Tessa has this incredible tough assignment, but to be able to give your all and then be able to come out, get a little rest, and have other players come in and other players come off the bench and contribute so that you get enough time to rest and then come back out again, that's a factor that Iowa could not do. Caitlin never had a chance to get that second and third win in my book. It was pretty much Caitlin was out there and she played pretty much the entire game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's where I felt like that's what kind of cost them. Yes. I think it would have been nice to have her get an extended break right after the first half, just to kind of get her a little rested up, and then she comes out and finishes strong. But South Carolina was doing too much. They couldn't afford to have Caitlin not on the court. Yeah. Do you agree or disagree on that one?
I agree that they should have taken Caitlin Clark off the court for a little bit. I mean, because I feel like even though South Carolina's defense was just out of this world good in the second half, I feel like you could kind of tell that Caitlin Clark was also just like exhausted by the end of the game.
Yes, she had done everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, because she was trying to do, there was one part of the game where she kept like trying to do a layup and like the defense like kept smacking it, but it didn't, to me, like it didn't seem like she was like putting her all in trying to do those layups. It was like she was just trying to get the ball into the basket and not really like playing as well as she could have.
When you're tired, you lose your legs. And you could see that in those plays. She was losing her legs. She did not, if they would have gave her an extended break, but it's kind of like, I think about kind of like the Lakers, the way they were last year, or some of the teams with Kobe, the later years, where it was kind of like, if you take this guy off the court, their defense, their second team is gonna get blown out. If LeBron's not on the court, if Kobe's not on the court, the team that's out there is not gonna be able to keep pace. And that's kind of what happened. If Caitlin was off the court, South Carolina was going to extend this lead and put them away. So it was like, I can't take Caitlin out. So Caitlin played like 40 minutes, right?
Yeah.
You know, it should have been, she should have, out of that 40 minutes, she would have been able to get like a 5 minutes of break out of that, this would be a different game. But South Carolina made it impossible to pull her out. There was not going to be a period of time, but they were going to give her any extended time. And through a long tournament, going into the championship, you're already tired and beat down. And now, you had to get past LSU. Now you have to get past South Carolina, and there's no rest for you. Yeah. Was just more than she could handle. Here's the question. Caitlin Clark makes it to the finals, but she comes up short. Is this a black eye on her legacy?
No, I don't think so.
At all. Zero. But I'm going to let you know something. I already know this for a fact because I've already talked to some people. Everyone first was, want to see how she does against LSU. But then once she got past LSU, it was wait till she plays South Carolina. Wait till she plays South Carolina, where she's going to play the real girls. People that don't want to celebrate Caitlin Clark was looking for an excuse to not celebrate Caitlin Clark.
Yes.
There wasn't anyone. Do you disagree with me? Nobody on the court was better than Caitlin Clark last night. But the better team won.
Yes.
Caitlin Clark was the best player on the court, but the best team was South Carolina. And basketball is a team sport, and this is a prime example of why a great team a lot of times can beat a great player. If Iowa had someone, a number 2, that when Caitlin came out could go on a run and get some buckets so that she can sit on the bench a little bit longer and rest, this is a different game. But because the team was so one-dimensional, Caitlin Clark or death, it was pretty much Caitlin Clark or die was the offense to me. It was obvious. And the key was halftime adjustment. Okay, fresh Caitlin Clark came out there in the first half and was lighting them up. Second half, tired Caitlin Clark didn't have enough energy to win the game. That's pretty much what it came down to. The winner, the MVP is the coach, South Carolina's coach, because she made the adjustments. She kept giving her people a lot of rest, 37 points off the bench. You know, Iowa's points off the bench was 0. 0 points off the bench. No one. I don't care if you're high school, college, or pro. If you're getting 0 points off the bench, you're not winning. And that's what happened.
Before we go on break, I do just want to touch on the amount of viewers for this game.
I know.
Amount of viewers. The game brought 14.2 million viewers on average throughout the game, peaking at 17 million, which means it was also the most watched college event ever on ESPN+. The post-rating record-breaking NCAA women's basketball tournament ends with South Carolina win over Caitlin Clark. But before this game, Iowa's Final Four versus UConn was the most viewed ever. And that was at 14.2 million viewers as well. So I just want to say I think that is awesome because for people didn't want to talk about women's sports, didn't want to watch it, didn't want to do anything, and now a women's college.
I was going to say, because I love what you're doing with this one. I was just going to ask you if you wanted to. We got to go on break, but when we come back, we'll touch on a little bit about the numbers of that and then roll into our next one. Is that cool?
Sure. Yeah. Sounds good.
Excellent. Because there's a lot more to be had with this one. So I don't want to shortchange that one. So, okay.
Okay, guys. Well, we'll be back in a second and we'll be continuing our conversation. So we'll see you in a minute.